Hello, chicos and chicas. Last video I announced that we are going to play a few openings on the more passive side, and I played the Pierts. Now I'm going to play the French to demonstrate how these less ambitious openings need to be played still with the same gusto and vigor. In fact, more, if anything, in order to make up for the shy setup slash layout of the opening. Knight f3 is a very unambitious move, of course. d4 is the challenge. I expect my opponent now to take my pawn, after which we are not going to talk about a more passive opening anymore. Now, in this position, d4 is fine, c5 is fine, and knight f6 is also good. I'm still trying to provoke e5 so that we can at least experience a French structure, but my opponent is intent on playing very passively, and so that should be like a red cloth for a bull. We immediately grab as much space as we can, c5, and our next move is going to be knight c6. Now bishop g5 is interesting, because now if I play knight c6, then take, queen takes, and we lose a pawn, which is a little bit unpleasant. d4 is my instinctive go-to. It's actually, there's an interesting line with d4, knight e2, knight c6, e5, and my opponent thinks they're winning a piece, and there comes h6, bishop here, and g5. A cool motif to remember. So, what do we learn from this? Just because e5 is a pending threat, it doesn't mean that it wins a piece. In fact, it hardly ever does. Precisely because you always have h6, g5. Now, very often, this is a very serious compromise, and in fact, if you are castled already here, sometimes it's not doable at all. But I'm counting on knight e2 or knight b1, knight c6, and now if e5, can't care less, h6. If they take, I take g5, they take g7, I take back, and it's important to visualize that in that line, my queen is covering the g5 pawn. If they drop back to h4, I play g5. They take, I take, they take, I can then take on f6. And they don't have the classic g5 knight takes idea, because after takes, bishop takes, I can pick off the pawn since the knight is no longer covering it. Now, I calculated all of this probably way faster than a 1500 would, but you cannot possibly, and it's very important that you understand this, you cannot possibly play e5 here with white without having a sufficient explanation as to what you would want to do against h6. Because I guarantee you this guy played e5 thinking he won a piece. And when I played h6, he went like, oh, didn't see that one coming. To which, you know, the very crude comeback is that, well, what did you expect? That I was just gonna go like, yeah, okay, you won a piece? Of course not. And therefore, it's a very naive assumption, by the way, to think that your opponent blundered a piece, because, let's be honest, it's like, I shouldn't be blundering pieces all over the place, right? So at least give the opponent the benefit of the doubt that they have something up their sleeve. Right, so h6. I didn't really mention the bishop retreats anywhere. Bishop f4 obviously walks into knight d5. Bishop d2 way too passive. If I had to take a wild guess, he's going to drop back, and after g5, he's going to drop back again. Which is also going to lead to a pretty sad scenario, because after that, I can play knight h5. No, he opted to take. So if he had gone back here, knight h5, I will not take it yet. I will play bishop g7, then take the bishop, and then take the pawn, which is virtually unstoppable. He took f6, I take h4. Now, a second dilemma that often comes up here in such positions, once, you know, the Kingside gets seriously split and demolished, or I don't know what the right word is, disfigured, I guess we'll go with that one now, is oh my god, what about my king now? It's like, hold the fort, buddy. First of all, our king is not in any danger whatsoever right now. Therefore, the urgency to castle is completely unwarranted. Secondly, I can castle queenside anytime I like. And also the flip side of the coin of this story is that when they go like, where will I castle now? Where will white castle? Are they gonna castle into this open G file? Anyway, as far as moves are concerned, I'm very keen on playing here e5, extending my center, opening up the bishop's diagonal, although it's likely going to stop on e6. I then would likely castle, remove the queen from f6 and play f5, conquering the entirety of my beloved center. So let's act in that spirit. Note that I'm purposely hanging my queen with the knight e4 tempo, because it would force me what I want to do, which is that I wanted to get the queen out of the way for the f-pawn, rather. So now, thank you very much for forcing that to happen. I will drop back. I don't want to go to h4, I think, because then I might face knight h4 being another annoying tempo. So I think I will just calmly pull back to g7, and now f5 is incoming. And once again, who is losing a tempo here? I wanted to play f5. He's going to have to retreat. And my queen on g7 is completely fine. I want f5, bishop here. Oh, wow. f5, bishop, he castles. Two bishops, sensational pawn formation in the center, and happy days. And by the way, the sensational pawn formation in the center by default means that my king is safe. Because the white pieces cannot cross this barrier or border or whatever you want to call it in the middle. Now knight e2 is forced. And then I have got a little bit of thinking to do, because if I want to hit them real quick, I can consider bishop d5, bishop g2, e4. But maybe that's a bit early days, so I'm just gonna castle. And if bishop g2, I'm gonna play bishop e7. Now I hear you ask, why not d6? And I will tell you the answer to that. But I need to think. As in, I saw something briefly that I need to reconsider. So bishop e7, the idea was that if they castle, I would go h5. Also, if then rook e1, then bishop f6. And that's where I froze up for a second, because then they have got knight e5. And if I take back with the knight, they have f4. And I can't move the knight because the bishop is hanging on e6. That's an interesting line. Okay, what if I go h5 right away? Castles h4. Knight takes, rook takes, pawn takes. Bishop d5. Pawn f3. Give me that position any day of the week. Hello? If h4, then I'm gonna play bishop e7, and then f4 push would be very obnoxious. I really like the fact that what I'm demonstrating here is a very energetic way of playing. Like, we're trying to strike the iron while it's hot. Okay. So now castles is very iffy. Because then f4, or even more likely, a very famous pawn sack idea, e4, de4, and then f4 is going to cause severe trouble. Something is not right, by the way, with my audio settings, and it really, really annoys me. I was actually considering this move to be best. I didn't think they would find this. I don't know if I should play bishop d5 or bishop f6 first. Somehow this bishop doesn't feel safe on the e file. I'm not sure which way he wants to go yet. Let's go bishop d5. This feels more versatile. Now, castles is a very interesting move here. And I think it's actually the right one. This looks horrible. I just take an e4. Unless e4 is even better, because after knight d2, e d3, I'm winning a piece here. Huh. So e4. And if take knight d2. Yeah, I'm just so spoiled for choice here, man. It's rough. So e4 take knight d2. Somehow that feels a bit wonkier. I don't know. Maybe e4 was better. I just want to keep it very, very simple. Now this central pawn formation is absolutely lethal. Absolutely lethal. He's gonna go knight d2, knight e5. And at that point, the king is safe nowhere on the board, because if they castle here, I have d3 takes and then knight d3 and then queen b2 mate. If you didn't follow that, I really, really would like to invite you to calculate that with me, because it's such an instructive line. So knight d2, knight d5, castles, pawn d3. Now, obviously, they don't have to take it, but if they do, knight takes d3 check, king b1, and queen takes b2 is mate. Because the knight on d2 is blocking the path of the queen. These are the exercises that I keep on telling people to do on this level and lower. And they keep on asking me, what do I need to do to improve? And I get it, because it's hard. But this is what you need to do to improve. If castle's here, I'm already entertaining the idea of bishop takes. I don't think it's good, but I love it. Pawn takes, rook g8. F3 only move. Lord Jesus. No, okay, d3 it is then. So now queen e3, I then take. King has to take back. And I'm tossing up between rook d3 and knight d3, but probably knight d3 is better. Rook b1 first. And then maybe bishop f6 with the idea of bishop d4. There are so many moves here to consider for black. My position is just absolutely stellar. Yeah, okay, so queen e3 takes, knight d3, rook b1. I really like to find a knockout blow there, but I can't see one yet. Maybe bishop f6. Oh, I'm a potato. Yeah, bishop f6 is brilliant because it hits b2, and I'm threatening bishop d4, hitting queen and pawn. That is so cool. Yummo. Yummo. My opponent is in deep trouble, by the looks of things. I'm trying to fix some audio settings, and probably I'm making things worse, because that's what I'm good at. All right, what do we observe right now? That our opponent is thinking. For the first time, the longest think. I do think that this speedrun series offers a lot more value than the views would suggest, because again, the same story. This is so typical. People don't use their time well. And then they look at the end of the game, their time spent, and they go like, oh, I spent more time than my opponent, so I was more engaged. No, you were not. You sat there on a dead loss position for 3 minutes without a single productive thought, because there isn't one to be found. That's not good time consumption. Yep, and now it's Matutski. So we will pre-move this, because any other move is queen b2 mate. Yep. Don't know why they chose to do this, because king up would have been much better. A common misunderstanding or miscalculation and misvisualization why this might have gone down is because they assume that after queen e3 takes, somehow knight d3 in their head is still a check. So they basically put an equal sign between that variation, where they just simply give up the give up the queen here, versus playing queen e3 takes, king takes, knight d3, and they just think that we have to give up the queen again, but they don't. All right. Yep. I kind of stopped commentating, by the way, because for most intents and purposes, the game is over. Note, very cool thing here to observe. What happened? My opponent attacked my pawn, and I defended it. No, I didn't. This is not a defensive measure. This is an attacking move. My plan is to play bishop f6 and give a checkmate on b2. Yes, I covered the pawn on f5, but the general gist was not to defend. The general gist was to go for mate. Like so. The reason why I'm pre-moving this is because if I take and then check and then here, then if I take back, then they have check and pick off the pawn. Whereas if after takes I retake first, they can't stop queen b2, but I'm still monitoring f5. And of course, king d2 is mate into like this. Very, very instructive game. One of the best I played in terms of educational value. In particular, I really liked the thought process revolving around the e5 break and why I blindly chose to allow it. By the way, a better move rather than e5 here would have been something like g3, when after e5, bishop g2, bishop e7. We would have played the reverse King's Indian, where the bishop actually on g5 is misplaced completely. Because white never wants to trade this, that being their good bishop. And so it just sticks out like a sore thumb, and optimally you would want to go back home, but of course that costs you 2 moves. So anyway, e5, and then the cool stuff was this way. So once again, if bishop here, I go here, and now this is just a tragedy, like the pieces can't move at all. And I've got bishop g7, knight takes, followed by knight takes, winning the pawn. If knight g5, I take back, they take, I take. No free piece to be had. Also, take. And whilst we are materially level here, again, the very awkward development, or the lack thereof, on white side is going to tell. For example, here g4 is super annoying to me, knight d2, f5, and the whole white army is just completely jammed in, nowhere good to go. My position is awesome. The pawns are restricting the knights. There are lots of delicious diagonals to be had. If I could draw arrows, that would be amazing. Queen can come here. Wow! Queen can come here. If they choose to castle, then queen h4 is mating. Yada, yada, yada. Black is winning. So, yeah. And I think we converted this pretty neatly. This f5 plan was nice. h5, I love this. So the idea was after castles, I don't know if I would have done it, but I probably would have, was h4. No preparing h4, although technically not much wrong with it, but hello, let's go. And bishop d5, this is the real killer. And now after f3, white has got nothing but tragically misplaced pieces. I don't know how good this exchange sack is. It looks promising, but obviously this is a more adventurous way to go about business. Takes, maybe then I read out here, rook h8. It has to be winning, guys. Like, white has nothing. They cannot play a single legal move. Like, if they play knight c4, I can even kick it. I kid you not. Like, what's the best they can do? Go back home, right? And then I'm coming in from here, and then mate on the h-file. So this would have been very, very potent too. And then my opponent finally decided, yeah, this was terrible. So I was actually mostly thinking castles. I think that would have been the most exciting way to play. And now I'm a bit reluctant. Or am I? Yes, I am, to take because of b3. And if c4 to introduce mate, then knight takes c4 stops the mate. And then king b2 will trap the bishop. King b2 maybe immediately is not so great because I have the check. I mean, I could potentially do something like this, but this is not my idea of playing nice chess. And now after rook a1, I'm actually losing the bishop. So I can't take on a2. So maybe I would play something like bishop f6, rook e8, and play for an e4 break. My position is clearly way superior, but there is still a fair bit of legwork to be done. But yeah, knight c4 was just bad. And from here on out, we mobbed up. If castle's this way again, then I think either bishop h4 or just rook g8. Maybe this one. And then take next. Don't know, can I take this? I would love to. But there is f4 here, right? I mean, I can just drop back and pick it off next. But yeah, this is a bit speculative. So maybe just rook g8. Maybe just rook g8 and take it from there. And my opponent crumbled here under the pressure. And the rest was clinical and Matutski. Ladies and gentlemen, that was our newest, latest speedrun episode. Please don't forget to sub, to like, to thank me, to super thank me. If you can, leave a comment down below. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.